Hi.
Hello, I'm Micha from GSP Airsoft, and today we have something very special for you, the Novritsch SSG24. For us it's something special too, because Novritsch asked us if we're interested to test his gun, and of course we'll do that. We start with the delivery content, because there's much more included than usual, so let's go on. First of all, we got this case. This case is not a pele case, but it's solid and you can push it a little bit in. It's also elastic, what's definitely not bad. It's included if you buy the gun, and what's really good, it got hinges. There are metal pins built in and not plastic edges, which gets back and forth flooded like other gun cases, where the case breaks after 50 times opening. The case is secured with 4 lock levers. If you want to carry your gun with this case, just use zip ties around the grip and you're safe. Pyramid soft foam secures the weapon and bigger parts inside of the case. We got enough space to storage the gun with a scope, but if you want to attach a bigger scope to the rifle, the space inside the case will be rather limited. So a scope and bipod with the gun in this case is the maximum of space. Care about what scope you want to use. We got the NC Star Wisdom, and this fits with the scope mount attached and bipod on the gun. So as we said, we got the maximum pack size. Some scopes got higher turret knobs, and that could be a problem with this case or if you use a higher scope mount. Novritsch BBs are included in this package. These BBs are very slick, but more information about that later on. Furthermore, we got a cleaning rod with the right size for the inner barrel. Nothing special, but it's very good if it's included. Manufacturer don't do that anymore. We got an Allen key to adjust the trigger unit. A sniper patch is also included, which is only available with the Novritsch gun, and it's very nice goodie, which comes with this personal letter. This is a letter with Novritsch signature for the first 100 buyer, and I like it. Of course, the double stack magazine is included as well. It's pretty simple, but we will tell you more about that later. So now the most interesting thing of the package, the SSG24. Let's take a closer look. The SSG24 weighs about 2.6 kg and the length is adjustable because we can adjust the stock. So get a length from 1.09 to 1.11 meter. You can adjust it with the screw on the stock and lock it with the counter screw. Molded onto the butt plate is the Novritsch branding. And the butt plate is well rubberized, doesn't feel cheap. If you lock the stock correctly, the plate is fixated but wobbles just a little bit. It's important that you lock it correctly, then it's okay. The stock itself feels very good, and I like the thick pistol grip. Actually, it's not a pistol grip, more a rifle grip, but it's very thick. Feels like a Macmillan stock for those who know the real steel gun. Feels good and I like it. Further, we have to say the stock has a fine texture, feels velvet and valuable in general. You only can push it a little bit in at the front, but you need many power and it's minimal. Generally, I have to say the body feels very solid and good. It's a huge improvement if you compare with the Turkey Maru VSR10, where you can push the whole stock in and the gun creaks only if you take it. So the SSG24 stock is definitely much better. Novritsch offers 9 different springs for the gun, where you can choose 2. For the test we got 3 springs. The M150, which is actually built in, shots 2.4 joule, 500 FPS. The M180 has a velocity about 3.1 joule, 560 FPS, and the M170 about 2.8 joule, 545 FPS. So you can order your right spring for your field, change them easily and don't get problems in your local game area. For example, the fields in France or other events where bolt action rifles are limited to 2 duel. So the M150 spring and more isn't useful for you. But as we said, you can easily buy the right spring for the weapon. For example, the Airsoft Days in Germany has a duel limit of 2.6 joule and the OP Chernobyl has a limit of 3 joule. So you can buy the correct springs and use your rifle. Another nice feature is the mount base, which looks much better than the regular Wirs R10 base. This mount base is very accurate processed, fits tight and without wobbling, made out of high quality aluminum. There's only one problem with this mount base: one-piece mounts will not fit. For example, the SPR mount. If you try to attach it, on the middle of the base is no opportunity to attach the scope. Further, we got a M110 base that has the same problem like the SPR mount. Right above the cartridge case ejection is the free space and right there should be the mount. There is a simple solution to solve this problem. Use a scope with scope rings and you won't have any issues to attach the scope. Novritsch showed a different rail on his website, which is an extended version like the Macmillan rail that is used by the SEALs, and further will be a short full rail available to attach all scopes easily. So right now the big question is, how much does it cost? The first 100 pieces were sold for 460 bucks and it's the pre-order version with the twisted barrel. All guns which came after the first 100 will cost probably 500 bucks. The barrel of the SSG24 is much thicker compared to the VSR10. The VSR has the problem that the barrel is very thin and you can easily bend the barrel if you use the gun. So the inner barrel isn't straight if you bend the outer and your shot is not accurate. For example, if you lean on a tree, there is a chance to bend the barrel. With the SSG24 you don't got this problem because it's more thick-walled and the aluminum is better. So here we got the standard version with the twisted barrel. As we said, it's for the pre-order and Novritsch will offer more outer like straight flooded, tapped and twisted tapped barrel. The loading lever is a standard M700 lever with the fish skin look. I don't like this regular lever because it's rather small and with gloves you got a bad grip. But there is a tuning part available that contains an enlarged bolt handle for better grip and control. There will be more tuning parts available, for example more stocks. Here we got a standard M24 stock, which looks like the Remington M24 SVS, and further you can buy a M40A3 stock, which is the forerunner of the actual standard sniper of the US Marines. But there will be a third stock which is a modified real steel stock that works with the magazines. But I'm not allowed to give you information right at the moment because there are several things to discuss with the manufacturer and the stock isn't released yet. There are 3 eyelets on the weapon which give you the opportunity to attach sling swivels. These sling swivels are simple U-formed swivels which can easily be attached on the gun and secured with a pin and ring. You can buy them for 15 bucks and of course you can use other swivels, but what's very important that you can attach a bipod at the front of the gun. Nevertheless, the front screw has to be removed to disassemble the airsoft. That means if you want to demount the gun, you have to remove the bipod. I like very much that we got 2 screws for the bipod and sling on the front. Of course, the Harris bipod has an opportunity to attach a sling, but it's not common for every bipod, and with the SSG24 you got the option. One of the best features the gun has is the longer hop-up adjustment arm, which is operable from the outside like the VSR. For the adjustment you got pretty defined clicks, but more about that later when the gun is disassembled. It's very good and important that you can adjust it from the outside. You don't have to carry tools which you can lose, There isn't a wheel which has bad adjustment options with gloves. The SSG24 has a pretty good adjustment even though you wear gloves. The safety lever is the standard M700 lever that secures the weapon while it's loaded, as well as when it's not loaded, unlike the real steel weapon. We got two defined spots for the lever, save and fire. The last point before we disassemble the gun is the trigger. First of all, we got an aluminum trigger guard that is distinct valuable compared to the VSR10. The problem with the VSR10 trigger guard is with high velocity springs we got many load because the wall internals goes over the guard and is only with two screws secured. The SSG24 has a high quality trigger guard which is separated from the internals. The trigger is also very special. It's a two-step direct trigger. Let's compare with a tilt trigger. The RS Striker has a tilt trigger, as you can see here. It's like a rocker. It's also a good trigger, but there is a chance to jam. The direct trigger from the SSG24 doesn't tilt, rather show it backwards. The first step of the direct trigger is like pull it backwards, and the last step is pushing it backwards with a fine pressure point. This trigger is different from other systems and common for marksman rifles because of the defined trigger travel. The SSG24 is the first functional airsoft rifle with a direct trigger, which is very good and feels pretty smooth. Further, the coating on the rifle has some good and some bad points. The coating on the outer barrel is very nice and high valuable, but the loading lever has some paint bubbles. Not important for the performance, but for the eye, which is a bit sad. I think the coating could be a bit more superior because you can remove some parts of the paint with your fingernails and got some small silver spots. Further, the processing is good, and now let's take a look about the internals. First of all, let's have a look at the magazine and we compare it to the VSR10. The VSR10 magazine is a single stack magazine. That means the BBs are in one line. The SSG24 magazine is a double stack version, which has some pros and cons. The advantage of the SSG24 is that the BBs gets loaded straight into the barrel like a GBB, which thus the VSR10 magazine doesn't have. So the cylinder of the SSG24 loads the BB straight from behind and feeds every bullet. For the VSR magazine you need one more bullet because the last BB has to push the second last BB into the hub up. The SSG24 magazine has a loading cap for two reasons. First, it protects the feeder, which is spring-loaded. Due to this expander, the magazine fits better into different pistol pouches and the gun itself. The transparency of the magazine makes it possible to spot how many BBs are left in the magazine. I'll show you that in a minute. The problem with the magazine is that it doesn't work well with all BBs. For example, Bioshock BBs stuck in the magazine or jam it because they got a rough surface. With slick BBs, for example the Novritsch, JBU or G&G, the magazine works perfectly and we got no problems with that. But rough bullets don't work very well with the magazine. To solve this problem, Norwich will release a single-stack magazine in the future. Let's load the magazine. It's a bit more difficult compared to the VSR10 magazine, because you can load the VSR mag like every AEG magazine. To load the SSG24 mag, we recommend the added loading tool, because it will get tricky without it and protect the lips. Take a speed loader, set it on the top of the loading tool and fill the magazine. Now you can see how many BBs are inside of the magazine. Is the follower behind the curve, you got 10 BBs left and you can count your last shots. I like the transparency, but a single stack version would be much better. To open up the gun and disassemble it, we have to remove these two screws, which all classic army or modified snipers do have.
Allerdings haben wir hier noch eine zusätzliche Befestigung.
An improvement to the standard Modify M24 is this sling mount, which is also an extended screw.
Der ist eben verlängert und wird hier reingeschraubt. Ich drehe ihn mal raus, damit man das sieht. Einfach durchgreifen.
To unscrew it, just use a hex key or something similar.
Muss man natürlich ein bisschen länger drehen, bis der komplett offen ist. Aber auch das ist kein Problem. Und hier haben wir eben den verlängerten Pin. Und im Gegensatz zum Beispiel zur VSR.
The standard Modify M24 has only 2 screws in the rear and none in the front, so the barrel has room to wobble around.
Und um das eben abzustellen,
Novritsch solved this problem with this extended screw.
An dem Punkt kann ich auch mal sagen,
He corrected many more weaknesses of this gun, which is based on the Modify M24. Novritsch worked together with Modify and 4 other brands to release this special advanced version of this M24.
Sehr viel verbessertes System haben. Natürlich können wir jetzt hier viel erzählen, aber wenn ich euch ein bisschen die Innereien zeige.
A lot of you expected a standard Modify with the same weaknesses and mistakes, but that's not the case with the SSG24.
Inklusive mir auch. Ich wollte ja schon sagen Bodypins, aber das sind ja Schrauben.
Removing the 2 screws in the rear, we can see that the gun is not just screwed onto the body, but secures itself also with this extended trigger guard.
Hier im Body eingesetzt ist, hier ist sich auch im Body verkeilt, sodass wir hier eben sind auch relativ einfach zu lösen, indem wir hier einfach mit der Kreuz.
To get to the cylinder, you have to remove the trigger unit as well.
Generell muss man hier sagen, die Waffe wurde jetzt schon ein paar Mal zerlegt.
All these screws were secured with some kind of Loctite, but that's already the third time we take it apart, so there is nothing left of it. Also, Novritsch himself tested different materials on this gun and disassembled it as well several times.
Und Spring Guide Stopper entnehmen, das geht immer ein bisschen.
The spring guide stopper holds the cylinder in place and getting it out is kind of tricky. The used material is multiple hardened steel and it's definitely an improvement of the old Modify M24. It provides a centered position of the spring guide and makes sure no metal parts touch the exterior wall. Pulling the cylinder out, we can easily tell that the surface is very smooth and absolutely no manufacturing grades or anything similar. Another improvement is the slightly longer nozzle. The Modify M24 has a nozzle which is too thin for a good air sealing and too short to push the BBs enough deep into the barrel. The new nozzle provides the perfect placement of the BB inside the barrel and leaves a tiny space between nozzle and hub-up chamber to zero out vibrations of a fired shot. If you loosen the cylinder, you should take an Allen key, press the piston backwards and unscrew the cylinder head. On the cylinder head we got a Sorbo pad and O-ring, which seals the system very good.
Neben dem Sorbo haben wir hier noch einen Dichtungsring, der sehr sauber das System abdichtet. Und innen drin haben wir hier den Piston und die Feder. Der Piston ist sehr präzise gefertigt.
This piston is very accurate manufactured and has this little plastic ring that the piston glides very good and smooth inside the system. At the front we got a valuable rubber coating to get maximum pressure of the cylinder.
Auch dafür sorgt, dass wir den maximalen Druck aus dem Zylinder herausgepresst bekommen. Interessantes Detail ist auch
only the piston head is standard. All other parts are custom and no longer modified parts.
Alle anderen Teile wurden eben hier komplett neu gefertigt.
Also the spring guide is changed. Modify used an aluminum spring guide that breaks with springs over M160. So you had a damaged spring guide inside of your weapon which jammed very easy inside of the system. The spring guide here is made out of steel, pretty solid and well made, and with the spring guide stopper everything fits directly in the middle of the system and we got the best solution for the piston. Let's continue with the trigger unit. It has a nice black coating and is well made. I can't see any manufacturing grades. Let's open the unit to see the internals. First of all, there's a pin to adjust the trigger travel with an Allen key. In detail, you adjust a lever which pushes the trigger back and forth. Further you can see how the system works. If we pull it back till this point, it releases here.
haben wir bis zu diesem Punkt eben das Ziehen. Beim Zerlegen der Trigger
During the disassembly you have to care about this little pin. The pin is fixed when the spring guide stopper is built in and it holds the completely sear. Also you can see how the trigger works. The wall trigger unit works perfectly and is well lubricated. Only the spring seems a bit thin and I would change it against more valuable. But the system is very well overall. Very good is that all sears and parts are made out of steel. There is no aluminum or zinc die cast and that's why the system can handle very high velocity. Many other airsoft guns has zinc die cast and aluminum and that's why you have to change these parts or the unit breaks. Finally we got a 90-degree trigger unit. 90 or 45 degree is not that important. It changed the trigger response a little bit, but it's important that the parts are high quality, like the SSG24. Let's take a look at the mag well. A nice plus is that the well is screwed onto the outer barrel, which it makes it capable of being placed in any fitting body. The well is not screwed into the body like in case of the Wichtig R10, and because of that the gun will fit in many bodies. You could create one by yourself if you have the skills of building it. Looking at the quality of the plastic of the magazine well, we can tell it's not the best quality out there, but it's not bad too. The quality is okay and will last for some time for sure. If we continue to disassemble the gun, we will see that the first screw in the mount rail is a fake screw. It just covers a smaller screw which secures the position of the outer barrel. That's another improvement to the standard Modify M24 because it secures the barrel much better.
Der Montageschienen oben und dem Magazinschacht unten und so ist der Lauf einfach sehr gut im System gehalten. Wenn wir hier auch den Lauf herausgenommen haben, fällt uns auch...
While looking at the outer barrel, you realize that it's a pretty thick pipe of aluminum and it has an awesome quality. Several millimeters thick and cleanly cut thread. To take out the barrel you have to unscrew the extended hop-up arm first.
Und das erledigen wir, indem wir diese kleinen Kreuzschrauben herauslösen. Wenn wir diesen Arm jetzt abgenommen haben, können wir hier das ganze System einfach nach hinten.
It can be a little tricky.
Zum einen haben wir hier...
If you manage to get the outer barrel out, you can spot some barrel spacers inside the barrel already. The barrel end cap has a rubber spacer installed, which secures the barrel just fine. To disassemble the hop-up unit, take off the two adjustment arms and keep an eye on the spring-loaded mechanism. The spring will be released when you remove the arm from the unit. The last two screws hold the hop-up unit chamber together, and if you remove these, you can pull out the barrel and the hop-up rubber.
Ebenfalls einen kleinen Verstellschieber haben. Dieser Verstellschieber sitzt hier federgelagert drin. Beim Inlauf handelt es sich um einen 480 mm.
Novritsch chose an aluminum barrel which is pretty flat and straight. We hoped for an edgy barrel, but edgy is expensive and would have increased the value of the Airsoft. So we do understand why I choose another brand. We don't know exactly which brand it is, but we can tell that the results are quite good. If you really want to change the barrel or the rubber, these parts of wheels are compatible. The hop-up arm is made out of steel and is suitable for a lot of different BB weights. Novritsch will release more versions, which are better for heavier or lighter BBs depending on what you use in-game. The shells of the hop-up unit are made very precisely and don't have any manufacturing grades. Awesome plus with this setup is how air-sealed it is. To test it, you can place your finger on the end of the barrel and block the airflow. It's very important that you make sure that no BB is inside of the chamber. After you release a shot, you will feel that the pressure stays inside the barrel and there is no leaking. This is pretty good for a stock airsoft.
Einmal noch den Test. Und vorne haben wir wieder den Druckausgleich. Man muss jetzt fairerweise sagen, dass natürlich
Our airsoft rifle, which does have all the edgy tuning parts, will cost about 1000 euro, and if you upgrade every single detail on a VSR10 for example, you will still have a rifle which is nice on the inside, but rather cheap on the outside. The SSG24 whatever has already a nice outer and inner quality, and the only things we would change at this gun is the barrel and the hop-up rubber. They are good but not top-notch, as we already said. Other internals aren't compatible with the VSR parts, and to compare the gun to a top-notch VSR10 we do have Basti's VSR here. The rifle costs about 2200 euro, which include the gun itself and the scope, which costed 400 euro. Price of the tuning materials are about 1300 euro. So the Novritsch SSG costed about a third of the price and performs pretty good. The VSR is a bit better, it shots further and more precise. We installed edgy and PDI parts and it just get a better performance out of it, with a total cost 3 times higher than the SSG24. The SSG is out of the box a great gun with a great quality, and there is nothing you have to change at it, unlike the VSR, where mainly everything is replaced with aftermarket parts and even some homemade CNC milled parts. So we definitely recommend the SSG for everybody who doesn't like to spend a lot of money in tuning. The outer barrel of the VSR is still thin and the body made out of this cheap ABS plastic. Before we come to the shot test, we have note something. We tested the gun with 0.46 gram Novritsch BBs and with 0.4 Bioshot BBs. The Novritsch BBs are extremely polished and they work well with an air hop and the gun itself, but they lose precision at about 60 meters. The Bioshot work better for long distance at around 360 feet. Probably because the hop-up doesn't work so well with the Novritsch BBs at colder temperatures around 37 degrees Fahrenheit. The first shots were pretty good, but the colder the hop-up gets, the worse the results became. Our Bioshot BBs have rather surface than the Novritsch BBs, and that's why the rubber probably worked better at these temperatures with the Bioshots. The Bioshots have one major disadvantage: they feed horrible with the double-stack magazine. Novritsch is working on a single-stack version of the magazine, so you can choose later which magazine you prefer. Double-stack magazine with a higher capacity, which work fine with high polished BBs, or single-stack magazine with a lower capacity, which will probably work fine with all BBs. In conclusion, the SSG24 from Novritsch is a system which is built up very modular. Novritsch already announced different versions of the barrel, some suppressors, different bodies and even some mount bases. Nevertheless, the Airsoft has a good quality and performs very well out of the box. The gun will be released in Germany around May because the PDB is still working on it. German laws are kindly different, so we still have to wait for it. The gun will be probably a bit more expensive, but that's just a guess. At the end of the video we want to thank Novritsch that he sent us this Airsoft to review it. If you have any questions, ask us in the comments or message us. We are also interested in hearing your opinion and what do you think. Hit that subscribe button, like the video and have a nice day. This was GSP Airsoft.